It's Glenn, Red Dog Motorsports, and we are back out in the shop, as always. Thank you if you're tuning back in. If you're new, welcome to the channel. A little bit different today. We are starting our series. As you see behind me, I've got my 63 wheelies sitting out here. This is my entry for the Rat Rod Magazine 2024 build-off. And I'm hoping that I haven't bit off more than I can chew. Mechanically, I'm not concerned about it. As far as motor, getting all of it into a running and driving vehicle, not a problem. Getting this thing into some kind of sheet metal format that will be acceptable, I'm a little bit concerned about. There's a lot of sheet metal work. So let me give you a little walk around and we'll take a look at it. This is a complete vehicle, nowhere near to being a runner. Axles are all full of water, locked up. Motor's full of water and locked up. It has the straight six Tornado or whatever in it. And she is full of holes. So definitely gonna have to fix some of this, like around the windshield, up in this area. The roof literally is held on by two pieces on the other side, which I will cut out. All the windows and stuff were mostly in here except for this one. This one's missing. It was broken and on the floor. I'm going to be removing all of those. Right now my plan is to run without a roof since there really isn't much one, and just try to fix this stuff up in here, these areas. We're going to take all of this off. My goal is to do a 6-inch chop on it, thereabouts. About that much out of it to drop the roof line down. This is not going to be slammed in the sense of most rat rods. It's going to be low, but because, let's see, so Rat Rod Magazine build off, some of the rules were a $5,000 budget, not including your safety equipment. So like brakes and things like that don't count against it, but your vehicle purchase, your motor purchase, you know, the main components do. So I've done really well getting axles, motor. The motor's coming out of my 75 Jimmy. I'm going to LS swap it to get that motor out. And then for axles, I'm using a Chevy Dana 44 front. Using a AAM 11.5 in the rear from a dually. I needed that for the width. These come in at a width of 74. We're going to be running a 40-inch tire. Going to have a cage in it. I'm going to be doing, kind of sticking with the theme of my off-road stuff, buggy style, that kind of thing, blended with the 62 body. And I hope I'm making sense, not rambling too much. But with that budget in mind, I'm going to be doing a coil spring suspension. Gonna try to do it a little bit differently and get, I really want kind of that visceral feel with it, with, you know, the loops of the springs and some kind of big suspension components, either big arms that I can dimple die and all of that. Cut geometric shapes, that kind of thing in it. So you really get, what do they call it, steampunk or something like that involved. All of that's going to take a little bit of time. I am going to try to reuse the chassis that's underneath there. I think that I like the lines of it. It's kind of a little swoopy. It's fairly flat, so I can use it and I think still keep things fairly low. I'd like to run the hood. I haven't decided. I like with this hood. I chose this vehicle in part because it was cheap, but also I've always loved these grills. I like the shape of them, and then I like this hood. Now, that being said, is this part of the hood I like, so we may have to do something just to maintain that portion of it, tie it into maybe some metal work, that kind of thing. I don't know. Some of those things are not decided. I'm gonna have to work on that as we go. But for today, my goal is to get the axles out from underneath it, the motor out of it, the transmission out of it so that we can put it on the springs and get ready to move it into the shop so that we can start working on the rest of it. Also need to get the glass out of it at some point in the near future. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So let's get to it. We have made a mess, but I did get the motor and transmission out, and took longer than I would have liked. But I ended up trying to save some parts that I really probably didn't need to. Undid bolts when I probably should have cut, but whatever. I also spent some time poking at the body because it's a mess. It's worse than I thought it was. I think I've got some ideas that'll let me salvage it, but we'll see. We're just gonna have to see. But I also spent some time pulling the head off the motor because I want to save it. It's got neat writing on it. It's gonna make some good yard art. But man, look at how messy that is. This thing's been sitting for years, just full of dirt. Oh, that's disgusting. Everything's shot. This is just slap full. Won't never run again. I mean, the intake itself is gotten water in it and cracked and all that. The transmission actually looks like it's good. I don't know if I want to bother taking it off. Looks like I'd need to get it up in the air, get at it from underneath, or roll it over or something. I think the bolts to undo it from the block are inside. There's two up top, and then I think the rest are inside. Not really sure how that works. I don't know if the flywheel has to come off or what. So flywheel, clutch, all of that's in there. So I don't know. We'll wait for tomorrow on that. I need to go inside, and it's now time to work on editing for next week's video. Or for me, it's next week. For you, it's last week's. There. So yeah, I have to go edit last week's video. But we're gonna shut her down for now. Be out in the morning. All right, guys. As you can see beside me, I got the motor, transmission out, a lot of the parts off of this. I still need to take the windows out. But been doing some thinking. Actually spent several hours today just kind of thinking about how I want to go about getting this done. Discarding ideas. I've thought about, I've wanted to use some ORI shocks that I've got sitting up on the shelf. But I think that the perceived value of those will be just too high. I mean, 4 of them, even used, are still, that's almost half of my budget of $5,000. So I think we're gonna stick with coil springs. I've got a set of those, they're always cheap. We'll stick with the V8. That's gonna come out of the Jimmy, so we need to LS swap it. The axles I've got, they're all reasonably priced. This thing doesn't cost any money, but it's in bad shape. So I'm a little nervous about it. Had a bit of a panic attack on it last night, but I think it's manageable. I think there's some things I can do and whatnot to marry it all together, and have to just get in and do some repairs. Let me take you around and show you real quick. We'll do a little walk around. Some of the worst that I'm really concerned about is up in here. I mean, the windows are in there, but I've got big holes. I know you can't see, but and this is bad. The firewall, it's fixable. Sorry, the glare of the sun's just coming down. You know, we got big holes there. What I'm really concerned about is more in here. If you look down here, it's not attached anymore. So I'm gonna have to fix that. This post here is it's no longer attached either. Not really. And those two up by the doors, these aren't. These are rotted out. So both the B pillars, this A pillar is not attached. Now a lot of that's pretty normal. I mean, you know, you get these rigs out of the woods that are 50, 60 years old, and things are going to be bad. So the floor plan, I can't talk. I'm gonna leave that in there too. The floor pans are bad. That's pretty normal. The rest of this is a little more than I think most people would have liked to have started with. But hey, that's my way. If we ain't doing it the hard way, we ain't doing it at all. So that's what we're into. But it's gonna be time to move this into the shop. I gotta shuffle the black rig out. We'll get this into its bay where it's gonna live for a while. I gotta get the Jimmy over here so that we can start getting it ready for the swap. Make sure I got enough room to get in and around it, and then we'll get started. But that's gonna be tomorrow. So this has been a little bit of a rough week. Just been going back and forth over the wheelies. I know I showed you how bad the body was, and have really decided to let it go in terms of not doing it for the rat rod build off. The premise behind it is that I would have to spend so much time getting that body just to the point that I can use it, that I would lose any ability to really develop a rat rod with any customization to it. I'd basically be throwing a vehicle together and then calling it good. And that's not really going to get you very far in the show. So with that being said, I needed something that was a little bit more solid. Not that the Jeepster behind me is solid. It's got plenty of holes, plenty of rust, and it's truly looking like a rat rod. But it's the bones of it are more solid, whereas the bones of the Willys just was not solid. So I've put the Willys off to the side. The frame will definitely be used for my son's rock crawler. That gets us one step closer to having all of the parts and stuff to get started on it and get it moving. I think I've got pretty much everything except for a few of the suspension components. But that's a project for another day. Let's talk about this. A lot of what's going to happen to this is set in stone. It's getting a V8. I've got one in there. It was originally slated for my son's rig. I'm going to use it in this. I'm not going to LS swap the Jimmy. I'm going to use the LS in his rig. Mostly because that rig will probably end up being mine as I get a little bit older, and he'll end up driving the buggy off-road once he gets old enough. But that's beside the point. So V8, turbo 350, two-wheel drive. We're going to do a chop on it. We're going to build a roll cage. We've got some special stuff planned for the tailgate. And then we've got some kind of top we're going to do for it, whether it be a top that I build or whether one I cut down. But definitely getting that done. Obviously, we're going to have to do something custom for seats and some other interior stuff. You know, we'll need a console, cup holders, that kind of thing. So we're going to be busy building all of that. The tire combination, I've got 3 choices. 3. I've got the tires that are on it. I kind of like those. If I keep those, I'll just drop it down over the top of them. We'll use an 8.8 in the rear and a drop axle in the front and keep them. It won't be bagged, but in fitting with the $5,000 build, keeping the leaf springs that are on it isn't a bad idea. It's very budget conscious. I have the 2 other tire choices. Let me show you real quick. We've got just their standard 17-inch rim, 8 lug. If I use this, it would be outside of the body, and I would use the AAM axle that I bought to do the rat rod, the Willys rat rod. Because originally it was supposed to be on 40-inch tires that were outside the body. I can go with the 40-inch tire. I didn't really like the 40-inch tire. I think it's just too big. Sorry, I try to cut out a lot of this walking out of frame. I need to start learning to do a little bit better job of how I do that. If I use the 40-inch tire, you've got a 20-inch or 18-inch center line on the axle. When I drop the Jeep down, because I would bag it for that, I believe. I don't think I'd try to keep it up in the air. I think it's just too big. And part of that is because the vehicle's shorter. With the Willys was longer. It hung out much further past the rear axle. It had a longer wheelbase at like 106 rather than 101, which is what these are. Of course, you know, you can push the front end out, but I don't know. Not really sold on using those tires on this build. I also have some front end options. Let me show you those real quick. All right. Stepping up. All right, front end option 1 is to keep the Jeepster front end. This is a CJ5 grill. They put wings on it, and then they got a wider hood. You can take the wings off and use a CJ5 hood on these with just minor modifications and give them a whole different look. They call it kind of a bullnose look or whatever. Although, no, I guess the bullnose was the other one with the funky grill. I can do this, or we can go to this. In which case, if I use this, I would get rid of the hood. We'd run without a hood. We'd run without fenders. And we would go with the true rat rod look and have just the grill up here. Probably push the axle way forward and put it in front of the vehicle. And then run a stagger tire. Probably run the dually size rim on the 17-inch that I showed you with something like this up front. And I'd have different tires than those, but do something probably a little bit more aggressive. So I don't know. Those are my options. Like I said, it's been a frustrating week, but that's just the way it is when you're building stuff sometimes. I'll have to sit down, make some decisions, find out what parts we got. Once I have my path, then we should be able to start moving pretty quickly on it and get her going. So with that, I'm going to sign out. I would love it if people would comment, give me their ideas, their thoughts on what direction I should go with this. I have been excited. I'm still excited, even with the frustrations that we've dealt with. But like I said, that's the way it goes. So like, comment, we'll talk to you soon.